Hello and welcome to the official audio commentary to, I guess this is technically my first feature film, well, not technically, but maybe officially first feature film. Anyways, it's called, yes, it has a very long title. I think it's called something like fading light on an unidentifiable object with unhearable music and unreadable words, something like that. So, yes, it's just 1 hour of this one by one format film frame that's going from a very bright white to total black. And it is sort of a not really structural film, but it was definitely inspired by structural cinema. You know, structural films that got pioneered by Michael Snow, who made movies like Wavelength, where you're just seeing a room and the camera zooms through the room for like 45 minutes and ends up on a small picture of waves and stuff like that. And he also made like La Region Central, or however it's pronounced, the central region, I guess, where he put a camera on an robotic arm that's like 2 meters high, and he just positioned this gigantic thing that he constructed himself on the top of a mountain and just filmed there for 3 hours how the camera was swinging around on this robotic arm and so on. It's also a great movie. And the thing with structural cinema is that the function of the camera is sort of the focus of the movie. But that's not really the case here. I mean, what we are seeing right now is an extreme close-up, and I don't know if I should really discuss the secret of what we are actually seeing. It's a close-up of my penis with an extremely high overexposure, and my penis is like painted white, so that people won't notice that it's actually my penis but painted white. And so what you're effectively seeing is a gigantic close-up of my dick for 1 hour, and the light is slowly fading on this unidentifiable object and so on. I mean, maybe I'm also just making all of this up. Maybe it's not really my penis or something like that. Who knows? But if it is, it's at least really awesome that I got this movie on YouTube and so on. Yes, I think that's one of the mysteries that I wanted to reflect on with this film. The second thing is, of course, the unhearable music. And that is the music by John Cage. John Cage is one of the most important composers of the last century and one of my personal favorite, and he's really experimental. There is actually a piece by him that's performed right now, and they are performing it in Germany for over 20 years now, non-stop, on an organ, and it is going to last another 600 years. Alright, so we already see that John Cage is a pretty crazy artist. He also introduced Yoko Ono, the wife of John Lennon, to this incredible singing style that she has. And there's actually an incredibly funny interview or conversation between the three of them. So we have Yoko Ono, John Lennon, and John Cage. They were neighbors, and they are sitting together, and John Cage is saying like, yeah, you know, I'm also a singer and so on. And he asks John Lennon if he may sing something for him, and John Lennon says like, yes, sure. And John Cage just makes something like this. Wow, 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 wow. And then Yoko Ono says, oh my god, that's really beautiful. And yes, he has also composed pieces on the piano where he like threw garbage into the piano, and he also made music with like rubber ducks and stuff like that. And the piece you are hearing right now, the score for this movie, the soundtrack, is his piece 433, repeated over and over and over again. So what is 433? It's a silent composition by John Cage. So you hear for 4 minutes and 33 seconds absolutely nothing. You can even buy this piece on paper, so you get empty notes on paper. You can also listen to it on Spotify, YouTube. It has millions of views everywhere. It has been voted the most important composition of the last century. And yes, it's a really great piece, and I think it's quite fitting to this film. And I think that most people are actually not really getting this piece, because I know that I always thought that the idea is that a silence can also be music. For example, in many compositions you will have moments of silence, right? For example, I don't know, you have some great tune and then there's a pause for a moment, silence, and then it continues, right? And I thought, okay, this piece is just this bit of silence in the middle of a tune, just extended over the entire runtime of the piece. But it turns out that I was actually completely wrong about this. The idea is actually that, that's an anecdote. John Cage visited a university, and he was visiting a special soundproofed room, and he got in there and everybody told him, okay, this room is so isolated from every sound that there's total silence in there. You will hear absolutely nothing. And then he got in there and was completely disappointed because he heard something. He heard his own heartbeat and so on. And so the idea is basically that it's actually not possible to create total silence. And so the idea of 433 is not to create total silence, but to create a space for all the sounds that invade the silence. So John Cage would say something like, in 433, the musicians are still playing, but what you hear are their heartbeats, is their breathing. Maybe someone has to sneeze or something like that. And the same thing also is true for the audience members. So 433 is actually a jam session between or including the musicians and the audience, and all of the sounds that they are creating are part of the composition, basically. So I don't know, I'm fascinated by the piece, and so I wanted to include it onto this film. The idea for the film is actually, I mean, you can watch this on YouTube, you can also watch it in cinema, but actually I think the best place for a movie like this is probably in a museum. So I also somewhat thought that it would be, I don't know, not fitting for a museum to have like music over it, and I so, you know, music that you could actually listen to. And yes, I also just thought it was completely unfitting. The interesting thing is that the second movie I made, the second feature film, is called Eine Literaturverfilmung, literary adaptation. I don't know what a good English translation of the title would be, but that's basically a 6-hour film about Hegel, the famous German philosopher, and you are just seeing the words from his text about aesthetic on the screen, and there you actually have no music at all. So both this movie and my second film are basically silent, but this movie here has music. It's just silent music. And my second movie about Hegel has no music at all. So it's sort of maybe I hesitate to use the word metaphysical, but definitely a conceptual difference. And this brings me to the third thing maybe that I wanted to convey with this film, and that is that there are also words here that you cannot read, as the title suggests. And I wrote those words into the frame and then adjusted the color of those words of the text with its background so that you cannot read them. I mean, that was initially the plan, but then I just completely gave up on that idea and just, I did I really lie about this? I don't really know, because in a sense it doesn't make any difference, right? I mean, if I did not actually put the text in there. I wrote the text. My plan was to put the text in there and then make it unreadable. But in a sense, it would make no difference at all if I put it in there or not. The effect is essentially the same, and that is that we have a white screen right now, or almost white screen, and you cannot read any text there, so there wouldn't be any difference, so I just didn't put the text in at all. I was actually really proud of the text that I've written for this movie in particular, and it was mostly a very poetic description of all the horrific crimes I committed, all the things I felt guilty about, and so on. So it was like a long confession. And I also tried to find a form to, admit what I have done to the public and so on, to have like a public confession, but one that is not that cringe and awkward and so on. I wanted something very formal, like this movie, for example. And I've actually by now completely deleted and destroyed this text. So I don't know if there even is any copy of the screenplay for Fading Light. And in a sense, maybe that's really a good thing. But we are still pretty much at a wide screen. I've actually never really watched this entire movie, I think. I don't like my own movies that much. I mean, I don't like to watch them, and that's actually a really healthy thing, because if you have made the movie, you pretty much only see the flaws in them all the time. That's like a really great quote from Michael Haneke, one of my favorite directors. He said that he doesn't know any director who likes to watch their own work, and then he said that you have to be pretty much an idiot to enjoy your own movies. I think that's definitely true. So that's pretty torturous for me, actually, to sit down and watch this together with you, dear audience, because yes, it's somewhat uninteresting now that we all know that it's just my penis. Or maybe no, wait a minute. Is it actually? I think I forgot kind of. I think it might. Could it be that it is just a wall? Because that was also one of my ideas when I watched the amazing film 13 Lakes by James Benning, where you see for 2 hours plus just 13 static shots of 13 different lakes. And my theoretical approach, my immediate approach to this movie was, oh, look at this. You can make everything more interesting if you put it on film. And my immediate idea or reflection on this film 13 Lakes was, you should really try to do this with like just a white wall or something like that, and see how it works. If this wall becomes more interesting if you put it onto the screen. And I think it really does. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. Because one of my hypotheses, at least, would be that cinema has an intrinsically, psychedelic aspect to it. That a white wall is pretty boring and mundane, but if you're an asset, it's just more interesting immediately. You get a closer and a more intense look at it, a more intense feeling of it. And if what we are seeing right now actually is a white wall, I would have to agree that that is also the case here. I mean, I would never just stare at the white wall for now almost 17 minutes. But here, watching this movie, it is definitely an aesthetic experience to an extent. Yes, I mean, it's also obviously a reference to all kinds of abstract art and so on. Yes, I mean, there are so many painters I could list now. For example, one of my absolute favorites is, of course, Arnulf Rainer. He made a lot of completely black paintings, and also Gerhard Richter made completely gray paintings. Someone like Mark Rothko made completely black paintings. And yes, those are 3 of my favorite painters for sure. And again, Mark Rothko is so interesting to me because he creates, at least in his late work, those gigantic abstract paintings that almost, or they definitely seem to be like doors. It reminds one to read this famous book by, god damn it, what's the name of this guy again? Aldous Huxley, The Doors of Perception, where he describes his own drug experiences and so on. Here again we are back to psychedelics. The Doors of Perception. This is what Rothko tried to paint in his last years, and this is also one of the greatest inspirations for me personally, is to create in art certain doors of perception, something that you can sink into and have a transcendental experience. So that's also sort of what you're supposed to see here. And I think this works best with the color or the non-color white. Because if you have an ego-deaf experience on psychedelics, colors tend to merge together and create a sort of radiant whiteness. And the same thing also happens with thoughts and emotions. So that's also why my work seems to be pretty emotionless, especially this one here, and also thoughtless and contentless and storyless and so on. But the point is that I'm not trying to erase emotions or thought or things like that, but I try to achieve the same effect that an ego-deaf experience creates, which is that your feelings don't die, and your thoughts don't die. They just get so intense and merge together that they transcend and you pass the state of having emotions or the state of having thoughts or the state of seeing colors, everything gets into a radiant, solid whiteness. And this is also what's, I hope, going on in this movie, only that the whiteness of this film is going to slowly fade away. And this is also the sadness of getting out of an ego death experience. It's, in a sense, the sadness of not being dead anymore, and so on. It's definitely a movie about zombies, in a sense. Or it's a movie about the horrors of being undead. And this is also a technical thing, because one of the other great filmmakers that inspired me to do this film is the Austrian director Peter Kubelka, who made the classic experimental avant-garde movie Arnulf Rainer. Again, we are back at Arnulf Rainer the painter. And yes, the story goes like this. Arnulf Rainer is an Austrian painter, and Peter Kubelka, the Austrian filmmaker, asked Arnulf Rainer if he could make a short film about him. And Arnulf Rainer said, yes, for sure, that would be really cool. And so Peter Kubelka got into Arnulf Rainer's workspace and started to film him painting. And then for some reason, probably because all of the footage was complete shit, Peter Kubelka decided, no, you know what, I'm not really gonna do this. And then he just, I don't know, destroyed all the footage that he shot, or maybe it was destroyed by accident, I have no clue actually. The point is that in the end, this film, Peter Kubelka, is just 6 minutes of black and white. And I mean, literally, the screen is either black or white, and you hear a strange sound that sounds like this. Or you do not hear it. I mean, either it's silent or it's that strange sound. Either the screen is white or it is black, and this is going on for 6 minutes, and then the movie just stops. I mean, can you imagine being Arnulf Rainer and being happy that someone is making a movie about you, and then you go into the cinema to see it for the first time, and you're getting an epileptic seizure because of it, and you don't even appear in the movie? It's really funny, but I think that Peter Kubelka actually got this vision of Arnulf Rainer to go back to the basics of painting, and what Peter Kubelka is doing with the movie Arnulf Rainer is going back to the basics of cinema. And in a sense, you could also see this film, my film, as a really slowed down version of Arnulf Rainer that's also incredibly comprised. It's like going one time from white to black, like an Arnulf Rainer, where you're going from white to black and from black to white in milliseconds. Here you need an entire hour to get from whiteness very slowly over all the 50 Shades of Grey. Oh my god, I cannot believe that I actually made this reference to blackness. Yes, now I'm already at 23 minutes and I'm getting bored. We are still at a white screen. I don't know what's going on. It could also be actually that this is not even really a white wall that we are seeing, but the surface of a plastic mask. That I think is actually the true story, right? It's a white plastic mask that we are seeing the surface of it. What's so special about a mask? A mask can hide a true identity. That's what most people think or identify with it, right? And so you could say that this movie is hiding my confession, my true face, the face of a criminal, and so on. So you cannot actually hear, or you cannot actually read my confession because this mask is put over it. Or the other way around, the confession is written onto the mask but in the same color as the mask, so you cannot read it because the mask is beneath it. It is hiding the true message. But then there's also a completely different way to view this, because to make a Lacanian analysis of Batman Begins, the film by Christopher Nolan, isn't it the case that Batman's mask is actually the true face of Bruce Wayne? I mean, Bruce Wayne, the face of Bruce Wayne, the identity of Bruce Wayne, this, billionaire playboy, I mean, that's the actual costume. The Batman mask is the true face, or at least it reveals the truth. And this could also be the case here. I mean, maybe I'm really not a criminal. Maybe I'm innocent and ashamed to be innocent. And so maybe the mask, the fact that there is nothing there, no confessions to make, maybe that really is more truthful than to speculate about all the horrible things I may have done that are hidden away by this mask. Maybe the emptiness of my confession is really a much more true statement than to write horrific things on a screen, how I don't know, killed people, whatever I may have done. You will never find out. Probably nothing. I don't know. Okay, you know what? Enjoy the rest of the movie. I'm not going to put up with this shit. It was easy on 166 Minutes of Madness because I had 2 other people with me. It was easy even on Making Of because at least there was something happening. But here I just cannot think of anything else other than ramble on about my strange imagination and fixation on things. Enjoy the ride. You know what? Don't listen to me. I'm not a reliable narrator. Just watch the movie and experience it for yourself. And if you truly want to experience it, just turn off the sound right now, go back to the beginning of the movie and just watch it as it was supposed to be experienced, together with 4:33 by John Cage. And with these words, I